Uber is an American startup which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It was founded back in 2009, and since then it has raised over $20 billion and currently is valued at over $70 billion. In this time, 100 billion rides have been taken, and at the moment it's about 14 million rides each day. They've grown at a super rapid pace, being present in 600 cities and spread across 65 countries. So, going back to 2007, Travis, one of the founders, sells his company Red Swoosh for a mere $23 million. And Garrett, his co-founder, sold StumbleUpon, which you might be familiar with, to eBay for $75 million. And these two new millionaires meet at a technology conference in Paris, and Garrett's telling Travis about his new idea. He's been living this high life for a while now, but he believes that he could split the costs of his private drivers with other rich people to make it more affordable. He really wanted to make a lifestyle app for other rich folk like himself. And Garrett really believed that the company should own the vehicles, the parking lot, and the drivers, but Kalanick wanted to be more efficient and he didn't want to own the assets. And that's then how the idea of Uber was born. From looking at all the videos that I found of Travis online, you can really see he's set on this idea of making your life on demand, where by the click of a button on your phone, you'll get what you need. So the world was a little bit different back then, and the main reason this was really working was because in the US, each city has a limited number of medallions which they give out to taxi drivers. These are extremely expensive to loan as there's a lot of competition for them. And because of this lack of supply in taxis, they really needed to innovate on this model. Not only were the current taxis old-fashioned, but they didn't have any GPS tracking, and often if you called a taxi whilst it was on the way to you, somebody would flag it down en route, and then because the taxi driver is on really low wages and needs to make money, they'll pick up that person even if they're on the way to pick you up. In a lot of ways, this system can really lead to there being less cars on the road and people not wanting to own their own vehicle, which will make the city life more efficient, and it's also better for the environment. Of course, when there's a good business, there's going to be a lot of competition. And Uber's faced various competitors over the years, and Lyft is probably their closest competitor. There have been several occasions actually where employees and drivers have been trying to sabotage the competition by hailing and cancelling rides on each other. And Kalanick has also admitted himself that he's tried undermining the Lyft's efforts of fundraising. Uber's also seen a lot of fierce competition abroad, with one of the major ones being Didi in China. Both companies were losing money rapidly, trying to gain market share, and they both raised huge amounts of capital to battle it out, but eventually Didi won, and they had a $35 billion merger, which resulted in Travis being on Didi's board. Uber's really had quite an aggressive growth strategy, which has been praised by investors, as they've managed to get some really big names on their board, and even from one fund, they managed to raise $35 billion. They have continued to be raising money whilst reporting huge losses year on year, and the main reason for this being because investors really believe in the business model, and that if enough money has been pumped into it and if grown enough, that it will end up on top. Uber really likes to paint this picture that their drivers can be their own bosses and that they can work whenever they want. Although this is true, it has shown that it's pretty difficult for cab drivers to keep up with the minimum wages, even when they're working long, hard hours. There's even been a pretty big lawsuit between 35,000 Uber drivers to become full-time employees. But after 3 years, Uber actually won the case, and their drivers have continued to be contract employees. This is a pretty big win for Uber because it's much less of a hassle for them, but also they don't need to pay their drivers as much money. In 2017, Trump announced a travel ban to all Muslim countries, and in response to this, taxi drivers were striking. But Uber continued to operate, which led to a big campaign called #DeleteUber, where hundreds of thousands of customers were deleting the app. Of course, this did have quite an effect on Uber, but they have managed to prevail and are still active. And I'm pretty sure the people who have deleted the app during that campaign have re-downloaded it because they have a need for that transport. 2017 was perhaps the roughest year for Uber, And it already started with a female employee ousting the company for having a sexist culture. She made a 3,000-word blog post explaining different things that had happened over that time. It was alleged that the culture was highly hostile, sexist, and often quite offensive to most people. Later, Uber had an internal investigation where they actually found 215 claims from employees of discrimination and sexual harassment, and 20 people were fired after the report was released. Lastly, after coming home from the Super Bowl, Kalanick was caught losing his cool, arguing with a driver, which led him to seek out leadership help by hiring a chief operating officer. After all of this controversy and all these scandals, Kalanick actually took a year of absence to work on himself. And with all this pressure from investors and the public, Kalanick then stepped down from the CEO position and handed it over to Dara. Dara then also took the company public, and it was always clear that Kalanick really wanted to keep it a private company, but also he's trying to retain his power by staying on the board and adding people who would vote in his favor on the board. So what does the future hold? Kalanick strongly believed in self-driving cars and was investing heavily in them. Unfortunately, there was a fatality in the trials, and then they did remove their fleets from the streets, but they are still continuing to invest in the self-driving future. They have also been investing in micromobility, acquiring companies such as the bike-sharing company Jump for $200 million, but since then, Jump handed over the operation to Lime, who actually destroyed all of their vehicles. Uber Eats is another service which is growing rapidly, and according to Dara, it brings in 20% revenue for the company. I recently tried it out myself, and it's really cool to see the food coming down the street on my phone. I believe this has a huge potential for the future, and it really supports Travis's on-demand vision. In some interviews, he often explains that he wants to get to the point where they can predict the delivery so well that the food is delivered within 5 minutes of ordering it. So they've actually already prepared the food and everything is ready so that as soon as you order it, it can be delivered to your house. After researching the company quite a bit, I can really see that Travis was actually a great entrepreneur with a great vision, and he has truly improved transportation in cities and disrupted the industry. Unfortunately, he has made quite a lot of mistakes on the way, and a lot of people are unhappy with him. And to be honest, they have a good reason to be. But it can't be denied that he's built a great service which has actually improved people's lives.
So my last question is, what's Uber going to be like in 10 years? Have you ever envisioned?
I have no idea. I get that question a lot, and remember, we're 6 years old. And 6 years ago, who would have guessed what's going on now? So I don't try to presume to know what's going to be like in 10 years. A lot of times when people ask me this question, I say being at Uber is like driving a car. And you're driving pretty fast, and it's foggy. And so you have to hold on to that steering wheel a little bit tighter. You've got a bead of sweat coming down, and you're really paying attention to the road. You do not have enough time to look back and see where you've been, and you can only see so far ahead. But if you like the ride, if you like the journey, then that's all that matters. And I think we're going to go to amazing places, but we are really enjoying the ride so far.
So I really hope that you enjoyed that video and learned a little bit more about how Uber got to where it is today. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.